Good morning, everyone. Next, we are going to present the comparative analysis of the Colombia Competitiveness Report 2019-2020 versus 2020-2021. Focus on productivity and entrepreneurship. Study with productivity and competition. About productivity is efficiency in the way research and compete to create a final product. It is the most important determinant of economic growth and in general of the development of country. The most productive economies are ensure the most competitive and in this way also those with the best quality of life indicator. For its part, entrepreneurship is the process of ideation, creation, and administration of companies is a vital source of economic growth, innovation, and job creation. In Colombia, the importance of supporting entrepreneurship and increasing productivity has been recognized. This has been materialized in laws to support micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. Despite the efforts, in Colombia there are still barriers to the creation, growth, and closure of companies. In relation to this three process, the key is in productivity. The COVID-19 crisis came when productivity growth in the world, and especially in emerging economies, had not yet recovered from the slowdown caused by the financial crisis at the end of the year of the past decade and has seriously affected productivity activity following the closure of non-essential activities, restriction on mobility, and the disruption of world trade. Difference in productivity growth explain half of the difference in GDP per capita between countries and to that extent determining the speed of poverty reduction. The graph shows the productivity gap compared to the average of the OECD countries for the years 2000 and 2019, as well as the speed of reduction of the gap in 2019. 1 hour of work in Colombia generated 3.1% of the product generated in the OECD, and the gap was reduced by 10% compared to the relative productivity of the year 2000 that has a 28%. About competition is one of the most important components that must be addressed in any public policy that seek to successfully face that productivity challenge is related to free economic competition. So that has been weak in key sector of the economy, which contributes to a decline in productivity, low wage, and high prices for consumers. In general, few companies dominate Colombian markets, which suggests that it is necessary to promote a business environment with greater competition both internally and through international trade. For example, the most recent OECD economy study on Colombia shows that reducing barriers to trade will increase the purchasing power of Colombian households by 3.4% on average, benefiting especially lower-income households with a potential gain in purchasing power of 10.3% for the lowest income decile. So they recommend incorporate elements of industrial organization and competition law more explicitly and decisively into public policy for productivity growth. In the graph shows Colombia's average position in the world economy forum ranking in the domestic competition indicator. Colombia ranks 105 out of 141 economies, compared to the Latin American and OECD average of 95 and 39 respectively.
Well, now economic complexity is a fundamental dynamic that countries have to serve the markets with their products, goods, and services thanks to their productive capacity and diversity. But it's not only enough to produce them, but also with the way they are generated through raw materials, which apply to productive process reach a high degree of knowledge in terms of innovation, which hand in hand with research, science, and technology generates a high degree of value for the needs of the markets. For this occasion, we took into account the Economic Complexity Index, which answers the questions about the gap that countries have to face advance in terms of productivity and competitiveness and to investigate why some countries advance faster than others without taking into account competitive advantage derived from the environment and resources of all kinds that a country has, taking into account the speed of its growth. From this, already focused on the Colombian country in 2018. Colombia was the 38th economy in the world in terms of GDP, number 54 in total exports, number 51 in total imports, number 93 economy in terms of GDP per capita, and number 56 most complex economy according to the Economic Complexity Index. Okay, compared to neighboring countries, this graph shows that over the last 20 years, Colombia's economy has become relatively less complex, moving from 15 to 56 in the ECA ranking. In the Colombia case, it shows that progress has been made in terms of improving the indicator in the last 3 years, but with large gaps with countries such as Brazil that have encouraged production and manufacturing companies to improve their horizons on competitiveness and productivity. Colombia is still far from the whole indicator and faces a need to map the regions from their competitiveness, seeking to focus productions and access to markets.
Okay, now I'm going to talk about the demographics and business dynamics into the entrepreneurship and the productivity field. So, when we're talking about demographics and business dynamics in the field of productivity and entrepreneurship, it is necessary to look up the GPD per capita. Due to the richer a country is measured in its GPD per capita, the lower its rate of business creation tends to be. So, as you can see in the graph, Colombia had a low GPD per capita in 2019. So, therefore, its self-employment percentage is high, and this trend has continued, even increased in the 2020. So, therefore, the richest countries offer higher real wages. So, the product of a relatively sophisticated productive apparatus that discourage self-employment. Nevertheless, this is also bad because for any state, it's also necessary to encourage entrepreneurship. Therefore, it is necessary to find a middle point in which the well-being of the population is not affected, but that in turn there is an increase in incentives to undertake. Okay, and the second issue that needs to be reviewed is the early stage entrepreneurial activity, also known as the TEA. And Colombia's growing rate of total early stage entrepreneurial activity went from 22.3% in 2019 to 31.1 in 2020. And in addition, Colombia was the sixth country with the highest TA in the 2019. So this is explained not only by the structural problems that developing countries such as Colombia have, but it's also due to the implementation of different bad public policies, which put the well-being of the population at risk or at danger. So a problem arises, and it is that these public policies are encouraging the entrepreneurship, but due to the poor condition in which people live. And then entrepreneurship and innovation are growing, but it does so at a high cost in terms of well-being. So as I said before, we need to find, or the government, we need to find a middle point in which the innovation and entrepreneurship increase, but not putting into or putting in danger the risk of the population.
Now we turn into a productivity and entrepreneurship in the COVID-19 crisis. The pandemic has affected productivity activity in the world, and Colombia has not been the exception. national government has adopted a battery of action to meet the needs of companies, mainly MSMEs, in relation to demand for liquidity, protection of employment, and insolvency. In this sense, the lines of credit with guaranteed from the National Guarantee Fund stand out, whose support amount to 90 of the obligations for payment of the payroll of MSMEs and 80 of working capital of MSMEs. In addition to these actions and other aimed exclusively at the protection of employment, the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Tourism created the portal Colombia Sigue Adelante, with an inventory of instruments for the productivity sector on issues such as trade abroad, production of essential services for emergency, and the tourism sector, among others. We can highlight the following parameters by demonstrating the difference in credit mobilizations according to a National Guarantee Fund. During 2020, a higher value was achieved in the disbursement of guarantees than that presented in 2019, equivalent to an additional 4.7 billion. Compared to the guaranteed value at the end of the fiscal year, the FNG had issued guarantees for an approximate value of 15.75 trillion in the different guaranteed lines, a figure that doubles the 7.5 trillion of the previous year. This growth is due to the implementation of guarantee of the United for Colombian Special Program, which in a context of great contraction became a determining factor for financial intermediaries to facilitate access to credit. In terms of the number of guaranteed loans, this also presented significant growth, going from 303,298 beneficiaries in 2019 to 623,663 in 2020, as you can see in the graphics, reaching a positive variation of 105%. A good part of this increase was concentrated in disbursements to SMEs. However, this year also presented a sign of reactivation of the microcredit guaranteed by the FNG, which had suffered repetitive falls in the previous years, giving way to a greater number of loans. As conclusion, this has led Colombia to rank 79th out of 125 countries in terms of productivity and competitiveness for the period 2020-21, as opposed to the 98th place in the previous year. And this can be seen in the different factors compared. For example, the Economic Complexity Index measures the productive capacities of a locality based on the presence of activities. The economic complexity of a locality predicts its incomes level, economic growth, inequality, and greenhouse gas emissions. Colombia goes from being the 15th out of 70 countries in Latin America to 5th, or even the insolvency resolution factor, that Colombia currently takes first place with respect to the 17 countries compared to the second place in previous years. This helps to remedy the damage caused by the pandemic and to resume the advance in well-being that were achieved in the recent years, considering a productive and competitiveness strategy.